Jury deliberations continue this morning in the Delphi, Indiana double murder trial. Richard Allen is accused of killing 14-year-old Liberty German and 13-year-old Abigail Williams back in 2017. Abby and Libby, they went for a hike. They were later reported missing, and the next day their bodies were found, both with cuts to their throats. The case attracted tons of attention, in part because of a photo and audio recording of a suspect taken from Libby's smartphone. The case ran cold for more than 5 years until Allen was arrested in 2022. He pleaded not guilty to the murder charges. He could face up to 130 years in prison if convicted. Drought conditions are fueling wildfires, not out west we're talking about, but rather in the Northeast. Nearly 12 million people are under a red flag warning in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island today. And this weekend was filled with hazy, smoky skies in New York and New Jersey from several wildfires burning there. There's also fires at the heart of in the heart of New York City as well. Windy conditions ignited one in an iconic green space in New York, Brooklyn's Prospect Park. New York City, clearly not an area known for wildfires, has been under a drought watch after the driest October on record. Firefighters in North Texas pulled off a heroic rescue this weekend, saving a 2-year-old child trapped in a massive apartment fire. When they arrived on scene, they were alerted that the child was trapped on the second floor of the apartment building, and we see through here how that rescue played out thanks to body-worn camera footage. They managed to pull the child through a window and then transferred him quickly to a medevac helicopter for immediate care at a nearby hospital. No word right now on how that child's recovery is going. Sarah?
All right, now on to some international news. Thousands of Russian soldiers, along with North Korean troops, are preparing for a large-scale assault against Ukrainian positions in Russia's Kursk region. The offensive is expected to begin within days, and it comes after Ukraine launched its largest drone attack on Moscow since the war began. This, says President Biden, will meet with President-elect Donald Trump on Wednesday and is expected to urge Trump not to abandon Ukraine when he takes office. CNN Chief National Security Correspondent Alex Marquardt joining me now. What can you tell us about this offensive that is expected to take place and how it's being planned to take back some of the Kursk region?
Well, Sarah, Ukraine is desperately trying to hold on to this large part of Russia that they took over in a stunning incursion back in August in the Kursk part of Western Russia. And I'm told by a U.S. official that Russia is indeed planning an operation to take place in the coming days with tens of thousands of troops to try to take it back. Not just Russian troops, but some of those recently arrived North Korean troops as well. Now, a Ukrainian commander tells CNN that there are around 11,000 of these North Korean troops that form about 3 full brigades. So it's a significant amount of support for the Russians. They include some North Korean specialist troops like artillerymen and snipers. And it is very important for Ukraine to hold on to this territory because it could become a valuable bargaining chip in future negotiations. There are real concerns in Ukraine that incoming President Trump is going to pressure Ukraine to essentially settle and give up territory. There are concerns about his relationship with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. In fact, Sarah, there was a report over the weekend that Putin and Trump had spoken. We have not confirmed that, and the Kremlin did deny it. But there was a call that we do know that that took place last week between Presidents Trump and Zelensky, and on that call was also Elon Musk. And Musk is one of the people in the Trump orbit who really concerns President Zelensky and Ukraine because he, along with others, have pushed so-called peace plans that would include compromises for Ukraine, giving up their territory to Russia in exchange for an end to the war. Musk talked about giving up Crimea. J.D. Vance has talked about giving up parts of eastern Ukraine. That, of course, is something that President Zelensky has no desire to do, but fears that the U.S. May pressure him to do when President Trump comes into office. And that is why it is so vitally important for Ukraine to try to fend off whatever is coming in the coming days from these Russian troops, from these North Korean troops in that Kursk region of Russia. Sarah?
Alex Marquardt, thank you so much for all your reporting on this. Appreciate it. John?
All right, with us now, CNN Global Affairs analyst Kim Dozier and staff writer for The New Yorker, Susan Glasser. Kim, I just want to start with President Zelensky and what he fears more, this Russian counteroffensive in Kursk or the incoming Trump administration with Elon Musk on the phone?
Look, he's stuck in the worst possible place and has put a brave face on it, trying to welcome the Trump administration in. But he knows that if Trump decides to pull support for Ukraine, that Europe can't make up for it. European officials that I've spoken to have said the real problem is the military, the weapons manufacturing base. The U.S. has been able to give so much to Ukraine because they've got the manufacturing base to make up for that and resupply U.S. troops. Europe doesn't have that capability. So while financially they might be able to send money Ukraine's way, Ukraine really needs the U.S. support to keep prosecuting this war.
And Susan, insofar as you can tell so far, how is Vladimir Putin playing this?
Well, look, what Putin is preparing to do, it appears, with this possible offensive in the Kursk region is to create as many new facts on the ground as possible before Trump takes office, before there is a major effort to pressure Zelensky to settle the war. So I think both sides are going to take this, but certainly the Russians, who have the advantage, are going to press that advantage because they have the very real possibility of an American president who's effectively going to take their side in negotiations and pressure Zelensky to give up territory that Russians already hold. So, of course, it's in Putin's interest to hold as much territory as possible right now, and I think that's what we're going to see.
And in terms of facts on the ground, so just expand on that a little bit, because Kursk is actually in Russia. What he's trying to do is kick the Ukrainians out before there's actual talk about land, right? Because if there were a negotiation with both sides of the table, Ukraine could say, oh, well, we're here. We're in Kursk. As long as we're trading land, let's keep this.
Exactly. I think that's an important point, John. And remember that Russia also is elsewhere been pressuring Ukraine all of the last summer and fall in parts of the east and west. They're also launching a series of drone attacks, escalating drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. Its electric infrastructure is something they could target even more with winter coming. So, when I say facts on the ground, I mean not only in Kursk, but elsewhere along the front lines with Ukraine. I think you can expect to see Russian activity in the days leading up to Donald Trump's inauguration. And I think, again, the lack of transparency is important. But remember, Donald Trump is already signaling pretty hard that he does not want the sort of old Republican establishment in his new administration. I think it was notable that he said already that both Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo, who are seen as strong supporters of Ukraine, will not be welcomed back into a second Trump administration. Donald Trump Jr., meanwhile, literally was sending out a social media post the other day saying essentially, ha ha, Zelensky, your allowance from the United States is about to end. And I think that signals what direction very strongly the Trump administration is planning to go in terms of cutting off support for Ukraine.
Kim, what's the timeline here? Is it as simple as the transition that Putin, Zelensky, everyone right now is planning for this 70 days because that's all that's left?
Well, look, Trump has said he could solve it in 24 hours, and he's also said that he could solve it before Inauguration Day. But with such claims in the past, it's been sort of bravado, putting a marker down, and then he takes as long as it needs to take. The fact of the matter is, though, he does have the diplomatic advantage with Putin willing to talk to him and Putin willing to play ball, in part because Trump administration former officials are already making noise about raising the cost of the price of oil, which would damage Russia financially. So that's the sort of blackmail they're holding over Moscow's head, or likely will, to come.
Kim Dozier, Susan Glasser, great to see both of you this morning. Thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate your time. Brand new hour of CNN News Central starts now.
President-elect Trump's transition team is in full throttle as allies jockey for jobs. They have picked a border czar and announced a nomination for the UN ambassador. We have new details from inside Mar-a-Lago. And Elon Musk may have outsized influence over who gets what job. He's been seen at the dinner table and on the golf course alongside the incoming president. Also, nearly 7,000 acres burned since early October from nearly 600 wildfires. No, this is not California. This is New Jersey and New York, what residents are being told to do in this unprecedentedly dry October. I'm Sarah Seiden with Kate Baldwin and John Berman. This is CNN News Central.
All right, happening now, just last hour, President-elect Donald Trump announced that he will nominate New York member of Congress Elise Stefanik to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. She has been one of his closest allies in Congress for years now. In a statement to CNN, Trump said, quote, "I am honored to nominate Chairwoman Elise Stefanik to serve in my cabinet as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Elise is an incredibly strong, tough, and smart America First fighter." So this is just one announcement, a sense of where he might be going in terms of foreign policy. Let's get right to CNN's Steve Conterno for where this fits and what else might be coming. Steve.
Yeah, John, Stefanik is someone who has been increasingly close with Trump over the years. She was actually one of his, not on the short list to be a potential running mate for Donald Trump. She campaigned pretty aggressively for that job, ultimately, though, did not make his final three and obviously was not the choice. But she was always in line for a potential job in the Trump administration, and now she takes the job of UN ambassador, assuming that she is confirmed. It's also a job that Nikki Haley once had, interestingly enough, someone who ultimately grew to become one of Donald Trump's biggest rivals in the Republican Party and who will not be part of his administration this go around. She joins Tom Homan as the two people who have already been named to positions in a new Trump administration. Homan will be a border czar. He was, of course, Trump's ICE director in his first term as president. He is someone who has been intimately involved in shaping Trump's immigration policies. He actually wrote an entire chapter for the Project 2025 book on immigration and was a contributor to that. In the last couple of weeks, we have been trying to get a sense of how Homan views the effort of trying to send, this giant migrant movement out of the country. And here is what he said on Fox just moments ago about how he sees that taking place.
I've been clear, President Trump's been clear. Public safety threats and national security threats will be the priority because they have to be. They pose the most danger to this country. So we're going to prioritize those groups, those who always have final orders, those that had due process at great taxpayer expense, and the federal judge says you must go home, and they didn't. They became a fugitive. Word-like operations have to happen. Here's why, Steve. Where do we find most victims of sex trafficking and forced labor trafficking? At work sites. And the Biden administration shut down work sites.
Now, all these decisions are coming from Trump as he stays camped out at Mar-a-Lago in the weeks since his re-election, where he is getting a lot of influence from many of the people who were key to his victory, including RFK Jr., Susie Wiles, who has gone from campaign manager to chief of staff, and also Elon Musk, who obviously was intensely involved in the effort to get Donald Trump elected. He has had an outsized role in shaping the influence around Donald Trump's new administration. We always knew he was in line for some sort of role, potentially overseeing spending, but it has been far more expansive than that. And he has grown apparently close with the Trump family. Take some look at some of the pictures posted to social media by Trump's granddaughter with Elon Musk with the Trump family, and clearly is finding himself with an influential part of Trump's early sort of cabal of people who are helping set up his new government. It's an interesting development given how much wealth he has, how much conflicts he has throughout the world, what he has already done in China, what he is doing with the war effort in Ukraine, and it will be interesting to see what role he has, official or otherwise, in the Trump administration going forward.
Yeah, his fingerprints, Elon Musk's fingerprints or Twitter prints, all over the place right now during this transition. Steve Conterno, thank you very much for that. Kate?
And let's talk about that. Joining us right now is CNN contributor and longtime tech journalist Kara Swisher, and also the author of Burn Book, A Tech Love Story. It's good to see you, Kara. Thanks for being here. What do you think of this relationship and how it's developed between Elon Musk and Donald Trump? How much influence do you think Elon Musk could be having on Trump's views and agenda and policy?
Well, I don't know. I haven't covered Trump. I know Elon very well, but I'm told that whoever the last person in the room is for Trump often has control of him. And of course, Trump's attracted to the wealth and the the glamour around Elon Musk. I guess it's glamour. I don't quite know what it is. Nerd glamour. And so he's going to have some influence. He definitely inserts himself all the time. That's his style. That's why he's just suddenly shown up there like the guest that wouldn't leave. And I've heard from Trump people calling me saying, "Oh, wow, this is odd." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. You'll see much more of it." But he's not going anywhere until Trump throws him out, which could happen because they're both really strong personalities who like to be at the center of attention.
I'd heard you say that. I wanted to ask you about that. And it's something I don't think a lot of people have appreciated or pointed out yet, is that they both have, I mean, Elon Musk is a big personality, and you think that that aspect of Elon, who you know, could really push him to kind of flame out in terms of being in favor with Donald Trump pretty quickly.
Well, they're both narcissists, and there can be only one narcissist as head of the country, and that's Donald Trump, who just won the election. I think, he owes things to Elon, but at some point if he takes too much of the attention. Think about Steve Bannon. Do you remember he was on the cover of that magazine and how quickly he got out, even though he was critical to Trump's first campaign, and he was right in the middle of the White House, and then he wasn't. And so Trump, goes through people like tissues, essentially. And I think even if it's Elon Musk and Elon has a lot of money and means and things like that, they're going to clash at some point. There's also a lot of people around Musk who are, they're going to get increasingly nervous. Again, as I said, I've heard from a number of them that, they were like, "Oh, you're kind of right about this guy." And I was like, "Yeah, I told you, he wants influence. And since he can't run for president because he comes from South Africa, he's going to try to exert as much influence as possible in these first critical days to get what he wants, which is that. It's always about what Elon Musk wants. Just remember that."
And okay, so on that note, I wanted to ask you, because Ukraine, one of the first things we heard after the Trump win was that Musk joined the phone call between Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky the day after the election. Elon Musk's Starlink internet service is critical to Ukraine's troops battling this Russian invasion. And it is not hard for people to put two and two together if they want, and see that it's hard not to interpret that Musk's presence on the call could have something to do with Trump's potential leverage he could be looking for to have over Zelensky when he's vowed to end the war.
I think that's too much chess. These people play checkers. Musk plays chess, but you wouldn't have the head of the person who makes tanks in the room. It just and threaten Ukraine. This is because he was probably just sitting there, and which Trump has done on occasion, and he just puts him on the phone. I mean, this is not someone with any foreign policy expertise, even though he has companies that are around the world. And one of the reasons he bought Twitter is so he would have more impact with his other businesses like Starlink, like Tesla. So that when he walked in the room, he wasn't just the car guy; he was the Twitter/X guy. It's very important globally, especially with autocratic leaders, to have that power.
And how if we take past as prologue or current as prologue, in how Elon Musk runs his companies and his style and what that could mean going forward. I mean, cutting waste and inefficiency in federal government is something that many presidents have promised and many Americans would like to see. But what would Elon Musk's managerial style do in a federal government context?
Well, a lot of it is jazz hands around him, and some of it's chaotic. Some of them are run well, but he's always got someone behind them. Like at SpaceX, it's a woman named Glenn Shotwell or other executives. And often he comes in and he just, overthrows trash cans and says, "Everybody, we're going to do everything differently." That's something he does a lot. I don't think you can do that in government. At SpaceX, they've blown up a lot of rockets to get to where they are. I'm not so sure you can blow up things in the federal government quite as easily without some impact. And so it's not this thing as running a company where you have fiat to do everything. And I think distance help streamline over easy fix way. So you just cut it and that would be that. It's just not true. It's just not accurate. But it sounds good.
That is true, and there could be a difference between what sounds good and what ends up being a good result. It's good to see you, Kara. Thanks for jumping on this morning.
I call it jazz hands.
Jazz hands. I do like jazz hands. I don't know if I want jazz hands in federal government, but I will say, fan of. the jazz hands. We know Kara Swisher is a huge fan of jazz hands. It's great to see Kara. Thank you, Sarah.
I'm with you, Kate. All right, President Biden has invited President-elect Trump to meet him at the White House on Wednesday, a courtesy Trump did not extend when the roles were reversed, what that conversation might look like. And this morning, wildfires are raging in New York and New Jersey and California. A look at the weather conditions that has caused this up ahead. And have an unusually high number of packages arrived at your door? You may be doom spending. What is that? We'll talk about it coming up.
Sunday, I'm bench.